Hey everyone. So, this vlog is going to be about the topic of death. And I figured I would do this vlog while I'm uploading the goth elitism. And basically, what I wanted to talk about, and this is a difficult subject to discuss, because I know some people have trouble discussing this, and for the most part, where is it? Can't really find what I'm looking for. Well, there was something. Oh wait, I think it was in here. Yep. Yes, it is. Okay, there it is. Okay. So there's a reason why I wanted to bring this up, and as far as posting a vlog about death and my thoughts and opinions on it. And basically what I wanted to talk about is, well, a few years ago, my grandmother passed away, and she had a lot of mental, I don't want to say mental instability, but she suffered from dementia, and she suffered from Alzheimer's, and I know that it must be pretty scary for something like that, and to pass away or die and not be able to remember your family or people right before you go. It's just, it really bothers me, and death seems to come in many forms, and I know I've talked about this before, and I know in one of my previous vlogs I've also said that I've had an experience with death, and not many people believe me, and that's fine. I mean, if they choose not to believe me, then they don't have to, and I don't press that on anyone. But the point is you should cherish the time that you have while you're here, and respect life for what it is, because when you die, well, it's hard for me to explain, because for me to explain it to other people who haven't experienced what I've experienced, they don't quite understand the perspective of death. And even though I'm alive now, at one point when my heart was stopped, even though my brain was active, this is so difficult. It just, it was like I was alive, but I wasn't. It was like I had an outer body experience, and it's not really the same as dying, but in a way it is, because you can see yourself. And the weird part is if I wasn't really dead, I wouldn't have had the conversation I had with a being or an entity claiming itself to be death. As in the gatekeeper, as in the ferryman, as in, well, it's got many names. And it's just really hard for me to talk about it, because when I bring it up, everyone says, oh, well, you're full of shit, oh, that never happened, oh, it's just your brain, it was craving oxygen. And they really don't understand that what I saw was real. All the way down to the leather book with the oak tree on the front of it, to the blank page where my name was supposed to be. I mean, that's how surreal it was, because when I spoke to this entity claiming to be death, and this was back in 1989, I was 5 years old. I was born in 83. So, not that hard to figure out how old I am from that. So, regardless, this being that claimed to be death, how do I want to put this? When it opened the book, I'm going to say it because I don't, no one, I don't know if it's male, female, or whatever. It didn't speak, it just pointed. And, well, it did. It did say a few words. It just said something to the effect of, your name is supposed to be here, but it's not. It's not your time. I didn't understand what that meant. Other than maybe I wasn't supposed to die yet, or maybe, I don't know. Usually from everything that I have read and everything that I have looked into when it comes to death, and that book that it carries around, known as the Book of Life, it's supposed to record everything that you do in your mortal body, so that when you cross over, as I like to call it, or when you go either the gates of hell or gates of heaven, or assuming you even believe in that. I mean, if you're an atheist, then, okay. It's supposed to record your events up to your untimely or timely death, and or deceasement. So here's the problem I have with that. If I was 5 years old and it opened this book and it said that, and the page was blank, who am I? Why am I here? I have to wonder, what is my real agenda in this mortal plane of existence if everything that I do isn't recorded in that sense? It really makes me wonder if I'm not already dead. And the more I look at my body in this mortal form, and a lot of the defects that it has, I start to wonder if maybe that isn't the case. if that maybe somehow mankind didn't find a way to just clone me before it was allowed, before it was acceptable. And I wouldn't even say acceptable, more like, to put it simply, it's like cloning something before its time. It's out of context. It doesn't fit into the time period or timeline. And when you put something that's out of place there, it doesn't quite fit in. And I've noticed that. I've noticed this. That even I don't fit into society. I don't fit into making friends. There's tons of things that I can go on about that. I just don't fit in. So I have to wonder. Am I really alive? Or did I die and they cloned me and they're just waiting for me to die again so they can re-clone me? Like some experiment. And maybe that all the defects that I have aren't just really deterioration from clone after clone after clone. Now, a lot of people would disagree with this because they would say that it's inhumane and that it goes against the Geneva Convention and I remember distinctly something being in there about that. Now, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'm thinking of something else and I'm just getting things mixed up, but I'm pretty sure it was a Geneva Convention that talks about that, about not being able to clone humans. But regardless, you can't escape death. It's inevitable, and as I said before, you should just enjoy your life while you have it, and maybe someday there'll be a cure for death, and there'll be immortality, and people will no longer have the need to die. But if that happens, then you have to wonder. Will it affect how do I put this? Will it affect this planet? And I'm sure it will, because this planet is already overpopulated, it's already overcrowded, and by doing that, you would just add more problems to it. So that's why I really believe that death is important. Death serves as a balance to life, and in my point of view, in my opinion on this is, you can't really have one without the other. Because if you didn't have death, you wouldn't have life. And if you didn't have life, you certainly wouldn't have death. So that's not to say that I believe in reincarnation. That's not to say that when you die, you don't come back as someone else, or because, I'm sure that, it could be possible. I mean, again, like I was saying with the clones, who's to say I'm not really a clone, and maybe that this clone body isn't defective. Now, keep in mind, all the things that I've said is concerning clones and reincarnation. Those are all just theories. I'm not really speculating that it's possible. But who's to say? So what brings up my next question as far as death goes, since you can't have life without death and death without life, supposedly. It's not really an endless cycle, it's more like a balance. Life to death, because time flows one direction. I have to wonder if you look at death and you look at the point from when you were born to when you die, for all those people that have had experiences claiming to have seen death or even spoken to death, much like myself, of course, well, I'll get to this next subject after I'm done here. All the experiences that have accumulated from beginning to end should be recorded into the book of life, and that's assuming you believe that there's even a written record of it, and it's not just nothing. It's not just an abyss. It's not just a black and darkened void that you fall into and nothing happens. So what I'm driving towards is more or less the fact that this book was opened, he turned to a page, it was blank. If the next time I speak with death, is that page going to be blank again? Or is it going to be full to the brim? Who makes this decision? What makes this decision to put that information down? Is it me? Is it death? Or is it someone else or something else? That is a question that I've been asking since the incident happened. I've been asking myself that a long time. And I also have been asking myself, why did it happen? Now, a lot of times people might think, well, your body, when you go through stress or you go through certain events, it tends to fabricate what it believes its concepts are to certain events. But how does a 5-year-old conjure up the concept of death and remember it? Now, I've talked about this in a previous video, and I'll post the link in the description to that video where I discuss it, and I don't really go into full detail because in that video because I didn't want I really didn't feel comfortable at the time talking about it, and now the more I think about it, I do want to discuss it because I want to know people's opinions and what they think on the subject of death and what, because I mean there's an awful lot of it in this world, and you know, if it's one thing that humans have mastered, it's death. The art of killing, the art of murder, the art of war, the art of destruction, and the art of death. And I want to know what drives humans to death and not life. You know, because for me to have been 5 years old and conjure up the concept of death and remember it in its entirety, and for other people to say, oh, death doesn't exist, but yet I remember it, and I remember having this conversation, and I know I had this conversation, not just here, but slowly. I have to ask, you know, what makes you think that possibly we all don't have this connection to that being or that entity in some fashion, and that when it is our time to go or whatever, it doesn't make the decision for us. See, the weird thing about my incident is I had heart surgery, and they had to stop my heart, but yet they still had blood flowing through me, and they had oxygen flowing in my brain. So what I want to know is, if I really wasn't dead, why would my body conjure up something like that? To the point to where I would remember it even to this day. Without traumatically traumatizing me or causing some sort of effect. And that also leads me to another perspective of, when I say effect, when, and this is gonna make me sound crazy, but when I have stood in a room with the lights off, and when I've been in that room by myself, and I know I'm in the room by myself. Well, let's use this room for example that I'm sitting in. I could have all the lights off, I could have my computer turned off, I can have everything turned off. And it could be completely dark, no light at all. And I will get the feeling, whether I'm asleep or whether I'm awake, that I'm being watched. Now granted, that door that you see right there is pretty much closed, even when I sleep. I don't really open it except for when I'm going in and out. and I don't particularly like leaving it open, because I can get into that topic in another video, but for now we'll just say I leave it closed most of the time. So regardless, maybe it's just my self-conscious, being aware that I had this run-in with this entity back then, and so I know it exists, but yet there's nothing I can do, and I know it's just my sense of being telling me that, hey, this thing is following you around, waiting for the right time to. So here's my question to you. If you had to confront an entity claiming to be death, how would you do it? And what would you do? So that's my question for you today, and I appreciate you watching my videos, and well, yeah, thank you again for watching. So feel free to keep watching, and I'll continue posting more. Thanks again.